Imagine picking up any book, reading it once, and retaining every single insight without ever having to reread a page. No fading memories, no brain fog, just pure instant recall. For most of us, that sounds like science fiction. Because the reality is that we read and then we delete. We consume books, we highlight pages, and then we forget why any of it mattered a week later. We essentially rent the information for a few hours, and then return it to the void. But there is a way to keep it. There are people who remember nearly everything they consume, and they don't have photographic memories. They have a better process. It is a method inspired by a Japanese approach to craftsmanship that treats reading not as a passive habit, but as a disciplined skill. This isn't magic, it's a technique. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to master it. Phase 1. The active engagement. The first mistake you are making happens while you are reading. Most people read passively. They let the words wash over them like water. To remember like a master, you must read actively. You must treat the book not as a sacred text that cannot be touched, but as raw material that must be mined. As you read, you need a pen in your hand. You need a highlighter. When you encounter a passage that strikes you, something that articulates a feeling you have always had, or a fact that shatters your worldview, you mark it. But you don't just highlight it. You fold the corner of the page. You scribble a note in the margin. You argue with the author. You write agree, disagree, or this reminds me of right there on the page. You are having a conversation with the book. This physical act of folding pages and writing notes begins the process of encoding the memory. You are creating a tactile anchor for the information. Phase 2. The smart note synthesis. Here's where most people fail. You finish the book, you feel a sense of accomplishment, and you put it back on the shelf. If you do this, you will lose 90% of what you just read within a week. The secret lies in what you do after the reading is done. You need to let the book sit for a few days, a cooling off period. Then you return to it to perform the transfer. But we are not just going to copy quotes. Copying is passive. We need a method that forces understanding. We are going to use a technique often called the SMART note. You will take a stack of 4x6 index cards. On each card, you're going to capture one single idea from your highlights. But here's the strict rule that changes everything. You are not allowed to simply copy the author's words. You must rewrite the insight in your own words, as if you were explaining it to someone else. Why? Because of a psychological principle called the generation effect. Information is better remembered if it is generated from your own mind rather than simply read. When you just copy a quote, you are a scribe. When you rewrite the idea in your own language, you become a master. You write the core idea in the center of the card. But the mental heavy lifting happens in that moment of translation. You are forced to ask, do I actually understand this? How does this apply to me? This friction, this struggle to articulate the idea, is exactly what burns the information into your long-term memory. Phase 3, the theme system. You have a stack of SMART notes, maybe 20 or 30, from a single book. Now you need a place to store them, so you can actually find them again. In the previous steps, we did the hard work of rewriting. Now, we need an easy system of retrieval. We are going to use the theme system. Many people try complicated filing methods with numbers and codes. That creates friction, and friction makes you quit. Instead, we are going to organize our knowledge the same way a chef organizes a kitchen. By category, you will take a box and create dividers for the major themes in your life. These are not book titles. These are life buckets. Examples of buckets might be strategy, psychology, health, money, leadership, creativity. When you hold a card about compound interest, you don't file it under finance textbook. You file it under money. When you read a biography of Napoleon and write a card about how he managed his generals, you don't file it under history. You file it under leadership. This is powerful because it is simple. It requires almost no mental effort to maintain. By organizing by theme, you are aggregating wisdom from different centuries and different authors into one single location. When you are struggling with a problem at work, you don't have to remember which book had the answer. You just go to your work or strategy section and flip through the cards. Suddenly, you have advice from Steve Jobs, Sun Tzu, and a modern CEO, all in one hand. You are mixing and matching wisdom effortlessly. This is the easiest way to turn a collection of notes into a functional external brain. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds overwhelming. You might worry that you won't do it perfectly. You need to silence that voice. You are better off starting imperfectly than being paralyzed by the delusion of perfection. The Japanese concept of Kaizen implies continuous improvement, small, consistent steps toward a better result. This system is the embodiment of that. Grab a pen, fold the corner of the page. When you are done, buy a pack of cheap index cards. Write down the 3 things that mattered most to you, in your own words. Find a place for them in your box. That is it, you have begun. This is how you remember, not by trying to force your brain to be a hard drive, but by building a system that respects the limitations of your biology, while maximizing the potential of your intellect. So, the next time you pick up a book, do not just read it. Engage with it. Tear it apart. Reassemble it. Make it yours. Do not let the wisdom slip through your fingers like sand. Catch it, store it, and use it. That is the path to mastery. And that is how you remember everything.